Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending tonight's performance of The Raven on YouTube, presented by the Little Theatre of Norfolk and performed by John C. Roberts. If you'd like to go ahead and get comfortable, our show will begin in just a minute. To replicate the theater experience at home, don't forget to full screen your presentation and use a good pair of headphones. Enjoy! Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping. As of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, rapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore. The rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door." Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened the door. Darkness there and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token. And the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and the shadows echoed back, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into my chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let us see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a moment stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched on the best of palace, just above my chamber door. Perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore? Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore, quoth the raven.
Evermore.
Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door. Bird or beast on the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on that placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered. Till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said,
Evermore.
Startled by the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore. Till the melancholy burden of his dirges, of his hopes one burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this ghastly, grim, ungainly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er. But on whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by his angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Oh, quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore, quoth the raven.
Evermore.
Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven.
Evermore.
Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by the heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, quoth the raven.
Evermore.
Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of the lie thy soul has spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
Nevermore.
And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting. Still is sitting. On the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. There we go. Well, I promised to talk back. This is what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to see what you all have sent me in chat, questions-wise, and try to answer them on camera for you. Now, you might want to be interested in sort of things like what drove me to do this in the first place? I mean, besides obviously being stuck in my home because of coronavirus, and what sorts of tools I might have used to do this, and maybe what my plans are for future live streams. So let me take a look at the chat. Oh, thank you for the applause and the bravos and the well dones. Who voiced the Raven? Good question. That was actually me. I pre-recorded that, and as with the Little Theater of Norfolk, I use QLab for my sound cues. So, except now they're just patched into my live stream via a mixer. Well, this is something I've just learned, is that I may have my phone silenced, but the pings still appear on my computer. So that can't be helped, unless I should have taken that offline, I guess. Well, that's a good thing, though, that nobody tried to call me in the middle of the actual show. So here we go. Here's Bill. Yeah. Ooh, thank you for that heavy reverb. I keep forgetting to do that. I have an effects processor that I do use for those that last stanza of the Raven, and I keep forgetting and leaving it up. And yeah, I've done this, of course, several times in rehearsal too, so apparently I didn't learn anything there. Go figure. You know, things happen. Like I say, this is very much an experimental project. Wanted to get an idea of what sorts of things that might be, we can do, what sort of tools we can use to do live theater now in the age of social distancing. Lights were great. Thank you very much. That was actually a fun thing. This is actually a 10-channel system, if you're familiar with DMX. I've got 2 lights up right now just for key lights. You know what I should do? I should probably also put up a little bit of background. There we go. Makes the background, give a little bit of uplighting on the background that helps pop it up a bit. And so I've got some color washes on a bar in front of me, and these 2 main lights are being driven by a dimmer pack. And then I've got a couple of uplights behind me. So the question out there was, how did you make the sounds go? Well, the question is very simple. I recorded most of those sounds myself. The sounds of the raven, the door creaking, and the shutter being flung open. Those were all things that I recorded here in my studio. The storm sounds I actually licensed from Epidemic Sound, which that's a wonderful third party that licenses sound and music for YouTube creators. And that's a wonderful thing because now you can use things which have and you're licensing them, so you don't get copyright strikes because you're using them. This is something that I've had to get very smart about very quickly: intellectual property law. YouTube's, especially with a live stream, if you go out with some copyrighted content, like for example a piece of music, and YouTube's Content ID system recognizes it, it will immediately cut your stream off right then and there. So as for actually firing the sounds, the technical side of that is I was using QLab and a little handheld remote to basically punch the go button from a distance. Please increase volume. Am I really not coming in that well? Okay. You know what? I just need to speak up better or move the mic because I am really at my limits right now. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I am really at the limits right now. Oh, hang on. I can do this. There we go. Is it? You know what? I'm not fond of this mixer. I think this mixer is giving me trouble, and I'm trying to at least... Yeah. What is wrong here? Yeah, this channel just dropped off the face of the earth here. Okay, I'm obviously I'm mad at this mixer now. So this is an older Alesis mixer, and apparently it's giving me a hard time. Huh. Okay, you know what? Let me try this. Bye-bye. We've got some technical difficulties here, some older gear. Hang on a sec. Check, check. Nope, that has not improved the situation. Okay, I don't think I'm going to use this mixer again for future live streams. It is giving me all kinds of grief now, and I'm not sure why. It is an older one. The lights I'm using, what I'm using is for the key lights that you see up right now. Those are a pair of Chauvet TF20s. So that's basically a nice white LED, with a soft white LED. So it's a kind of like an indoor white light. I've gelled them because they did make very harsh shadows before. They still make shadows now, but at least they're not horrible. And right now, the uplights that you see in the back behind me, those are some basic PAR cans. And I have, okay, and I also have the color washes in front of me, which are TF18s, also by Chauvet DJ. And they are really bright. You see, I can basically wash out everything in any color I want just by doing some RGB color mixing. And that's great for a theatrical production like this. For if you're doing, say, Zoom or something, I would just go with the TF20s. That does plenty of light for this kind of teleconferencing. The props are, in fact, the props and costume bits. That's all my stuff, actually. The only thing in here right now that isn't mine is this fake fireplace, which I borrowed from the green room at the Little Theater of Norfolk. Everything else is stuff that I already own or actually purchased so that I could do this live stream. I did all my own designing. I'm a long-time sound designer for the Little Theater of Norfolk. I've been doing that for about 5 years now. So honestly, the sound side of the picture, that was all skills I already had. It didn't take me too long to learn how to use a DMX light board. This is an old Lightronics light board that the theater used to use and doesn't use anymore because, honestly, the lighting rig that's in the theater is beyond that board's capabilities. But it works fine for a 10-channel setup, which I'm using. And it didn't take me too long to figure out how DMX works, because it's how computers talk to each other, and that stuff that I already knew courtesy of my days in the United States Navy. So that was a new adventure for me to design lighting, especially for a show like this. And what inspired me to pick this costume? Okay, thank you for that compliment. The Raven was written in 1845. I owned this vest already, and it's pretty much the most 19th century looking thing I own. Except for some maybe of my old Civil War reenacting duds. I used to reenact in the United States Navy, and also Berdan's 2nd United States Sharpshooters. What was my favorite part of the performance? You know, there's a lot of little times where I kind of looked through Edgar's poem and try to figure out ways to personalize that, to get across more of what that character was thinking. Like when the Raven first lands, it's like, you know, what does somebody think about it? It's like, okay, there's a Raven on my door now. And then the first time the Raven speaks, what the you can figure out the rest. As far as a fan of Poe, I do enjoy a lot of Edgar stuff. I studied that because I was taking literature courses when I got kicked out of college. Yes, I got kicked out of college. How about that? I was studying literature courses. I do enjoy Edgar Allan Poe's works. This one in particular, The Raven, is what put him on the map, so to speak. He was basically an unknown author up until this poem was published by in New York under his name, and then suddenly his fame shot up. It was a great success for him as far as notoriety, but not financially. I think he was paid a grand total of $45 for the publication of this poem. And in 1846, when asked about it, he remarked, "I am just as poor as I have ever been, except in hope, which is by no means bankable." So what inspired me to choose The Raven? Okay, this goes back a little bit. Some of my earliest stuff, okay, let me go back even further than that. In about 2012, I was doodling around on the internet, and I ran across a performance of The Raven read by John Delancey, which was great fun in and of itself. It was like, oh, that is so cool. The way he read that out and made that dramatic and gave it the various emphasis. I wish I could do something like that. Wait a minute, why can't I? So I went and bought a USB microphone and plugged it into my old laptop computer, which no longer works anymore. And I recorded a version of The Raven, which I then put online on a site called SoundCloud. So this is in a way that's an homage to that very early posting. Have I seen the Drunk History about Poe? I have not. I'm aware of Drunk History. I've seen some of their stuff, but I haven't seen the Drunk History of Poe. I do know that there's an Edgar Allan Poe museum in Richmond, which I was meaning to go and visit until the apocalypse started. Not much that can be done about that now. They kind of tell us don't travel more than you need to, and obviously museums and kind of public gathering places like that, it's kind of a scary situation now with a pandemic running around. This is, of course, what inspired me to do something like this, is because, obviously this affects live theater too, like the Little Theater of Norfolk, Generic Theater, the Virginia Stage Company at the Wells Theater. Everybody is, impacted. All of the creative communities here in Norfolk and Virginia are impacted by this pandemic because we can't have public gatherings. So the question is, how do we stay relevant in an atmosphere like this? How do we keep ourselves out there in front of people so that they can see we're still doing what we can in a situation like this, which is, let's be honest, we can tell stories. So we have the Script Club going on. We have a podcast going on. And this is our first video presentation from the Little Theater of Norfolk and Proscenium Audio. So if you like it, please, by all means, go to ltnonline.org/donate and toss us some dosh. It is obviously, we're doing our best to survive through the COVID. There you go. There's that lag. There's that latency again. I don't think the latency is as long now as it was before. Latency. So this is something you're going to have to think about if you plan on doing live streaming yourself. Latency is the delay between when you do something on camera and it actually appears on the World Wide Web. Bill and I measured that earlier a couple days ago, and I think it came out to something like 15 seconds. Now that said, when I set up this live stream, I set it for low latency, so it should not be that bad. Yeah, go figure. This, like I say, this is very much an experimental project. I'm bound to honk stuff up. What else do we have here? What was your rehearsal process? Okay, let me talk about that. Well, that started out basically was simple rehearsal, which was figuring out how I was going to move around the space. You know, this is my spare bedroom turned into a television studio, basically. So I've got this much space to work in before I start running into furnishings and whatnot. So I had to figure out how was this person going to pace around. So I had to develop my own blocking. And then it was just reading the poem back over and over again while rehearsing that blocking. Then gradually I began to introduce the tech elements. Sound first, because sound was something, like I say, I'm comfortable with already. Lighting second, because I needed to learn that. And then I eventually did the video side, which went through 2 iterations. I started out with a webcam, a little 720p webcam. At least it claimed to be 720p. It wasn't. But you know, it's hard to get a hold of webcams out anymore. I don't know if you've tried, if you're an educator, you might have noticed this. If you shop for webcams, then you've probably noticed that they're very hard to find right now because everybody's ordering them. So what happened then is, hello, excuse the pause. I am kind of stream of consciousness in here. So what happened was I found a webcam of an older model. It was supposedly a 720p webcam, but it isn't, because it doesn't do 30 frames a second at 720p. It does 30 frames a second at 480, which is the old school NTSC standard definition resolution. I don't know what it's doing at 720, but it's not 30 frames per second. So what I have now is I have an actual prosumer video camera, a Canon XLH1 if you're interested, going into a hardware encoder from Blackmagic Design, and it melds all that together, plus audio from my mixer, into a 720p projection. I tried to memorize the entire poem. The question was, did I memorize or set up prompts? And I tried to memorize. I really did. And actually, I did set myself up. Let me run out of. I did set myself up a prompt cue sheet. Basically, the first line of each stanza, just as a memory aid, in case I blanked, then I could use that to refresh my memory. Because usually, if I got the first line of the stanza, I was good for the rest of that stanza. That said, I did stumble over a couple of words here tonight. Oh, I'm not barely seeing anything out of this microphone. This mixer is really annoying me now. I did stumble over a couple of words tonight. Just basically lost my thread and was able to, but I was able to pick it up again. Yeah, memorization is tough without dialogue. That's a good point. That's because obviously if you're doing dialogue, then you have somebody reading things back to you. And that usually cues you what your next line is. Now, when reading a poem of this size, I mean, my initial read on this was about 8.5 minutes, but then I added stuff that padded it out. But it's basically like memorizing a monologue, except it's a monologue that runs 8.5 minutes. So that's not something that actors normally do, except, you know, unless you're doing Shakespeare and you run into one of those wonderful soliloquies that he put in, like Mercutio. Oh, well, then I see Queen Mab have been with you in Act 3, Scene 1. She is the fairy's midwife, and she plays all of the old again boys, etc. I memorized that one a long time ago in high school. Don't ask me to recite it now, because I just can't. So let's see what else is going on. It is a long poem. It is 18 stanzas. And there's a little fun with this. I actually went and looked up kind of the Cliff Notes type stuff about this poem, as you know, in case I got questions about that. And it found as it has an interesting history. The mechanism of the talking bird, that was not Poe originally. That actually comes from Charles Dickens. I'm never using this mixer for a stream again. That actually came from Charles Dickens' Barnaby Rudge. So, yeah, that was the next question, was going to be what I might do for the future. I already have one request in the works. Nina, the past president of the Little Theatre of Norfolk, has asked me to put on The Mask of the Red Death, also by Edgar Allan Poe. Well, that's kind of timely for this, but, you know, a bit depressing, but still an interesting challenge. So we'll see if I can put that together. Beyond that, another thing that I'd like to do is, because I think there people are probably going to be interested in how to do a live stream with, you know, better lighting, better sound, so that they get their message across much better. And so I think what I might do is some explainer videos talking about lighting, sound, and video for live streaming like this. So I'm going to do some tech explainers, but I'm also planning to do some more live streams of live content. For the time being, I am sticking to those shows that are available in the, well, shows, that sort of material that is available in the public domain, like Edgar Allan Poe. But we'll see if that develops in the future. So yeah, looking at probably some more kind of creative content like this, and some more, and some tech, and look forward to some tech explainer videos talking about what's the best way to kind of get this sort of content out there. And that would, I hope, also be useful for educators that are looking at ways to make their presentations over Zoom and Skype and everything else that we're having to use in these unprecedented times, trademarked, so that, you know, that they can make the video more memorable for their students, more impactful for their students. So hopefully, you know, it can be a public service as well as just a creative outlet for me. So what else do we have? So that's kind of what I'm looking at doing for the future. Let's see what else is there. So yeah, that's the next one's probably will be, and it's probably going to be at about a month time, because I do have some things that I need to do in the meantime. And plus I just need financially to take a little bit of a break. This sort of equipment obviously does not come cheaply, but most of it was stuff I already had on hand, being a long-time sound designer for the Little Theatre of Norfolk. And some of it was stuff that I was just beginning to build up, because I was looking at expanding more into things that I could apply theatrically from my you know, live sound gigs, like video projection and lighting. So, you know, there's just some more of that kind of stuff that I've gotten into over the years, and wound up with more gear hanging about. So yeah, there's definitely more content to come. So let's see, is that about it? I think, have we got all the questions? Yeah, I think that's about it for the questions there. Well, once more, thank you very much for coming to see The Raven, presented by the Little Theatre of Norfolk, and produced by Proscenium Audio. If you like this video, please don't forget to go down there in the corner. I'm looking at my image there to see what it says. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Ring the little bell so that you'll get automatic notifications when I put up future live streams and future videos. And if you really like it, please go to ltnonline.org/donate and toss the theater some, a few dollars here and there, what you can spare, so that we can bring you more content like this in the future, and so that we can keep the theater alive and functional and be ready to entertain you once more once we come to the other side of all this quarantine stuff. Great times, huh? Anyway, thank you again for joining me in the Little Theatre of Norfolk for The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And with that said, I will take my bows and I will take my leave.